And how are you doing? We're at Psalms 136, verse 12, the book of Psalms, yep. With a strong hand and with a stretched out arm, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now the strong hand and the stretched out arm which God used to deliver Israel were all because of mercy. Verse 13. To him which divided the Red Sea into parts, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now this passage destroys the idea or the myth that the Red Sea at the place of the crossing was only a few inches deep. Also, it wasn't really actually the Red Sea that you see on your map nowadays. The proper translation, and it's well documented, that it's not the Red Sea at all. It was actually referred to as the Sea of Reeds. There's a big difference. I mean, it's an entirely different geographic location. It's in a very similar area, but, you know, it's not the Red Sea, okay? You can check that out in your own personal time. I've explained it about 1,000 times here. Well documented. Verse 14. And made Israel to pass through the midst of it, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now, can you imagine the amount of faith it took for Israel to pass through these walls of water? They had to believe that God, who had made this path through the sea, would as well continue to defy the laws of gravity by holding the water up like two walls on either side. You can actually say that this is a typology of all the sin and all the rotten things trying to crush the believer, but God providing a way through. Okay? Verse 15. But overthrew Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. We have some indication that Pharaoh actually survived because he wrote that tablet, of course. Verse 16. To him which led his people through the wilderness, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now God intended for the stay in the wilderness to be a very short duration. A few months to 2 years at the most. The 40 years was because of Israel's unbelief and rebellion. So God had to spend all that time separating the true believers from the false ones, or the ones who simply wouldn't get their act together. And then God had to build the nation up and so on and so forth, and it took quite an ordeal. They could have just simply walked over, but oh well, their problem. Verse 17. To him which smote the great kings, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Well, obviously this speaks of Pharaoh as well as the kings mentioned in the following verses, and quite a few others. Verse 18. And slew famous kings, for his mercy endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his mercy endures forever. And Og, the king of Bashan, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now tradition tells us that Sihon was the brother of King Og, and both were Amorites. They were giants of the race of the Rephaim at the time of the conquest of Palestine. That being said, verse 21, and gave their land for an heritage, for his mercy endures forever. Even an heritage unto Israel his servant, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Og's territory was given to the half-tribe of Manasseh. I think you can find that in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 13. Sihon's territory was given to the tribes of Reuben and Gad, found in Numbers chapter 32, verse 23 through 38, and also found in Joshua chapter 13. Verse 23. Who remembered us in our low estate, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. God remembers his mercy and grace and forgets our sins. Man forgets God's mercy and grace and remembers all the rotten things we've done. Quite a different change right there. Verse 24. And has redeemed us from our enemies, for his mercy endures forever. Notes. Now the word redeemed means to rescue and to break the power of the one who has us bound. And of course that directly refers to Satan and all who would oppose us. This redemption is so powerful that it not only redeems us, but it also has the power to destroy our enemies. It's not an easy, immediate process, but it is the ultimate conclusion. Verse 25, who gives food to all flesh, for his mercy endures forever. Notes, now, the food addressed here pertains to spiritual and physical food, natural food, if you will. Verse 26, oh, give thanks unto the God of heavens, for his mercy endures forever. Notes, his mercy endures forever, and likewise, if you trust in him, thanks unto him, it will endure forever. You'll have a lot to be thankful for. Psalms 137 now. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yes, and we wept. We remembered Zion. Notes. Now the two cities of Jerusalem and Babylon are opposed. The one is God's city, the other is man's city. The one figures truth and light and justice, the other falsehood. The one represents the kingdom of light and the other that of darkness. And these cities exist today as principles. Verse 2. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. Notes. Now, captivity to the world paralyzes both hand and tongue so that it is impossible in such an atmosphere to sing the Lord's songs. That's what they're saying. We have nothing to be happy about. Verse 3, for there they who carried us away captive required of us a song, and they who wasted us required us of mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. Notes. Now the word there emphasizes the hostile environment. We want you to sing about the God who's supposed to deliver you and keep you out of trouble. In other words, they were mocking them. And can you only imagine how heartbreaking that must have been? But it was all brought on because of sin and rebellion to such a degree that finally God just wrote them a ticket of divorce, if you will. Verse 4, how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Notes. Well as typifying the historical narrative of an actual event, this verse also portrays the Christian who has actually lost his way. This is real history we're reading about. Verse 5. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. Notes. Very interesting here. This makes me to believe that David quite possibly wrote this psalm because he played the harp and he was a singer. The harpist is saying that even though he is not playing his harp, he has not forgotten how. As well, even though he is not in Jerusalem, he will not forget her glory and her joys. Verse 6, if I do not remember you, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Notes. The psalmist, he realizes, or she realizes, what he has lost and what he must regain. He has faith that it will be regained. These last few verses that I've read here, if you forget Jerusalem, life has no meaning. Okay? They've lost it and they want it back so desperately. It's very heartbreaking. Verse 7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem who said, raise it, even the foundation thereof. Notes. Inasmuch as Edom rejoiced in the day of Jerusalem's defeat, probably the lament of this psalm refers to Nebuchadnezzar's destruction of Jerusalem. Thankfully, Nebuchadnezzar apparently wisened up, and hopefully he kept smart. You can find that in Daniel chapter 3, I think around verse 4, if I'm not mistaken. A really humorous story right there about Nebuchadnezzar, how he started thinking he was a cow. Verse 8. O daughter of Babylon, who is to be destroyed? Happy shall he be who rewards you as you have served us. Notes. It seems that this prophecy was given before Babylon was destroyed and promised its destruction. That being, and so it is. Verse 9. Happy shall he be who takes and dashes your little ones against the stones. Notes. Now, the language here is figurative, a figure of speech, if you will. Babylon represents idolatry and falsehood, and her children are the idol images beloved by her. To destroy these things is indeed happiness to the servants of truth. Why? Because it's a load of nonsense. Chop down a piece of tree and cut it up and make it look like some figurine and say, this is God, or whittle a stone down, polish it up, and glue precious stones all over it and say, this is God. Give me a break. They have absolutely no intelligence whatsoever. You're supposed to be smarter than that, okay? Psalms 138, and it's something I've never been able to understand, bowing before a block of wood. Anyways, verse 1 of Psalms 138, I will praise you with my whole heart. Before the gods will I sing praise unto you. Notes. The predictions in verse 4 through 6, pay attention, relate to the time when all the kings of the earth, the gods of this verse here, will become subject to the words of the Messiah's mouth. And what he says is going to have a great bearing on things that happen. Verse 2, I will worship toward your holy temple and praise your name for your loving kindness and for your truth, for you have magnified your word above all your name. Notes. Well, his name means his reputation and character for faithfulness and goodness and truth. His word is his promise. In that future day, his performance will exceed his promise, thereby magnifying his word above all his name. That's one thing that is above God himself, and that is his word. I'm pretty sure if you Googled it, you could find the exact verse. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But God's word is the only thing above himself, and he watches it constantly. Verse 3, in the day when I cried, you answered me and strengthened me with strength in my soul. Notes. On the millennial morning, Israel will proclaim in song that all her expectations founded upon the promises of God will be surpassed by their performance. In other words, Christ is going to make things so good that it's just going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Verse 4, all the kings of the earth shall praise you, O Lord, when they hear the words of your mouth. Yes, they shall sing in the ways of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. Notes. Such praise, which is presently unheard of, will at that time, the kingdom age, be quite common. Verse 6, though the Lord be high, yet has he respect unto the lowly, but the proud he knows afar off. Notes. Well, God is not really actually a respecter of persons, and kind of a different meaning there. He, as the self-humbled one of Philippians chapter 2, verse 8, will be enthroned. The proud one, the Antichrist of Isaiah chapter 10, verse 13, and Daniel chapter 11, verse 36, will be afar off in the lake of fire found in Revelation chapter 19, verse 20. If I were Lucifer or Satan, I would try to cut a deal with God to take that out of the equation. Verse 7. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you will revive me. You shall stretch forth your hand against the wrath of my enemies, and your right hand shall save me. The Lord will perfect that which concerns me. Your mercy, O Lord, endures forever. Forsake not the works of your own hands. Notes. The confidence of the Messiah and his people is the trustworthiness of the promise of God is expressed in these last two verses. He and his people are one, and hence he walks with them in the midst of trouble. That being said, we'll pick up in Psalms 139. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.